Hello guys, welcome. This is Deepika from wealthandhealthmastery.com. In today's video, we are going to see what can you expect in the next NVDA earnings call. So NVIDIA is going to release its earnings on August 28th, 2024, which is for the Q2 of fiscal year 2025. Before we get started into that, let's first understand how they have done in the previous quarter and what are some of the shortcomings or the challenges that NVIDIA has to face. So first important thing is, as you can see here, the revenue is sitting at $26 billion for the Q1 FY25, which is the fiscal year 2025, and this is the Q1, whereas the Q4 of previous year was at $22 billion. So there is a jump of almost $4 billion, which is quarter over quarter increase of 18% and year over year increase of 262%. So that is what the revenue looks like for the last quarter. Now the gross margin are sitting at 78.4% for the Q1 of 2025 and at 76% for Q4 of 2024, and there is an increase of about 2.4 points quarter over quarter and 13.8 points year over year. So that is the gross margin. Now we look at the operating expenses have increased. So they have spent money on research and development. Also the administrative fees and stuff like that have also increased. So their operating expenses are sitting at $3.4 billion, and there is an increase from $3.1 billion to $3.4 billion in Q1 of 2025, which is a 10% increase of quarter over quarter and 40% increase almost year over year. You can see here. Now, if you look at the operating income is sitting at $16.9 billion, and in Q4 of 2024, it was at $13.6 billion. So there is an increase of 24% quarter over quarter and is 690% year over year, because Q1 of 2024 was only $2 billion. So you can see there is a huge jump from $2 billion to $16 billion in operating income, and that is a huge increase. The net income, this is operating income. Now net income has gone up to $14.8 billion, and in Q4 of 2024 it was sitting at $12.2 billion. So there is an increase of about 21% quarter over quarter, and there is a 628% year over year increase, because the net income for Q1 of 2024 was $2 billion and for Q1 of 2025 is at $14.8 billion. So there is an increase of about 628%. Diluted earnings per share was gone up from $4.93 to $5.98, which is almost $6 here. So there is a 21% increase, and again year over year increase is of about 629%. So this is what the Q1 of 2025 looks like. Now if you see what are their projected earnings or the forward-looking statements, let's look into that. So what is NVIDIA expecting for Q2 of 2025? So if you scroll down here, you can say revenue is expected to be at $28 billion plus or minus 2%. So currently, if they are sitting at $26 billion, you can see here the Q1 of 2025 was at $26 billion, and then they are saying that they are going to report around $28 billion. Now, what is the compounded annual growth rate? So you can see here the CAGR calculator I'm going over, and you can see the starting value is 26, the ending value is 28. Let's say it's 3 months. I'm just going to say 1 here. So there is an increase of about, CAGR calculator is 7.69%. So compounded growth rate is 7.69. So whereas the growth rate from the previous quarter was at 18%. Even though NVIDIA is going to have increased revenue reporting for the next quarter, it's only a 7.7% increase. Even though revenue increase is there to about $28 billion, but the CAGR growth rate is only 7.7%, whereas the quarter over quarter for the previous quarter was 18%. So you're going to see growth, but the growth trajectory is not going to be huge if they hit only $28 billion in revenue. If they hit more than $28 billion in revenue, then their quarter over quarter growth would be different. But based on their projected earnings, if they are saying that it's only going to be $28 billion, so it's only $2 billion increase from the previous quarter, which gets to about 7.7 CAGR, the compounded growth rate. GAAP and non-GAAP gross margins are expected to be at 74.8% and 75.5%. So for GAAP, which is basically if you do the accounting as per the American standards, it's called as GAAP. If you don't follow the American standards accounting, then it is called as non-GAAP. So GAAP margins are sitting at 74.8, whereas non-GAAP margins are 75.5, plus or minus 50 basis point. So for the full year, gross margins are expected to be in the mid 70s range. GAAP and non-GAAP operating expenses are expected to be approximately $4 billion and $2.8 billion respectively. Full year operating expenses are expected to grow in the low 40% range. So you can see here they're saying that their GAAP operating expense is going to be at $4 billion. And if you look at here, it is operating expense is at $3.4 billion. They are expecting about $4 billion in their operating expenses in this Q2 of 2025, whereas in the Q1 of 2025 they were at $3.4 billion of operating expenses. This is the outlook that looks like for 2025 Q2 quarter, and I'm hoping this revenue beats the estimates and it goes above $28 billion. I'm expecting a much better revenue growth from NVIDIA in the Q2 of 2025. Now, if it is at $28 billion, it's not a huge jump from Q1 of 2025. So now we have looked at what can we expect in the Q2 of 2025. We have seen that numbers will increase, but it's not going to increase by that much if we go by this outlook. But let's understand what are some of the challenges which NVIDIA can face and can affect its stock price. Now, what are the reasons to buy? Data center presents a solid growth opportunity for the company. As more and more businesses are shifting towards cloud, the need for data centers is increasing. So their data center growth is definitely going to be there. And to cater to this huge demand, data center operators like Amazon, Microsoft, and Alphabet are expanding their operations across the world, which is driving demand for the GPUs. And one of the major suppliers of GPUs is NVIDIA. So the growth in these data center is going to increase the demand of GPUs, which will increase the sale for GPUs. And NVIDIA is one of the seller of GPUs. So that is number one reason to buy NVIDIA. Number two reason is NVIDIA's GPUs are rapidly benefiting from the proliferation of AI. By applying its GPU in AI models, the company is expanding its base in the other untapped markets like automotive, healthcare, and manufacturing, which will support its earnings and revenues. So there is an increase in the AI demand, which is also another reason where the GPUs are being used. So that if the demand for AI continues to grow, so will be the demand for GPUs will also increase. So the number one reason was the increase in the data centers, which will increase the demand of GPUs. Then also the AI demand is also increasing, which is another factor that's going to contribute to the sales of NVIDIA. The third important thing is NVIDIA's foray into the autonomous vehicles and other automotive electronic space is positive. The company currently is on a firmer footing in the autonomous vehicle market. It is working with more than 320 automakers, tier 1 suppliers, automotive research institutions, mapping companies, and startups to develop AI systems for self-driving vehicles. So NVIDIA is also going in the automotive industry as well, which is another positive for NVIDIA. NVIDIA is a cash-rich company with a strong balance sheet and can be considered as a below-average leverage company, as its total debt to total capital ratio of 0.16 is significantly lower than the industry average of 0.30. Another important reason to invest in NVIDIA is their strong balance sheet. Their debt to equity ratio is around 0.16, which is comparatively less as compared to industry standards of 0.30. So that is another reason to buy NVIDIA, is because of their strong balance sheet. They have a lot of assets as compared to their liabilities. NVIDIA also boasts a steady cash flow generating ability. The company's accelerated revenue growth along with improving operating efficiency is bringing in higher cash flows. So higher cash flows is another reason where NVIDIA can spend this money on other investments or other innovations, which is also going to bring more return on your investment. So these are some of the reasons that you should be investing in NVIDIA stock. And currently NVIDIA stock is dipping. So this is a great opportunity to buy NVIDIA. Now, what are some of the shortcomings for NVIDIA? So there are a lot of challenges that NVIDIA can face in the upcoming years. Now, there are certain shortcomings also related to NVIDIA, and one of the is the US-China trade war. The United States and China's tit-for-tat trade war is a major threat to the company. This is because the United States is the largest semiconductor manufacturing country, with China being its biggest importer. So the largest manufacturer is United States, whereas the biggest importer of these semiconductor is China, and there is a trade war between these two countries is likely to further escalate as the US government imposed a new licensing requirement for NVIDIA's A100, A100X and forthcoming H100 integrated circuit sales in China and Russia in October of 2023. Because there is a China trade war happening with US, this is going to affect the top line as well as bottom line for NVIDIA. So, and that's not, NVIDIA is not the only company which is going to get affected with US and China trade war. There are other semiconductor companies who do business with China is also going to get affected because of these new licensing agreements. NVIDIA's near-term prospects might be hurt by softening IT spending. As you all know, there is high interest rates. Because when there is high interest rate, the borrowing of money becomes very hard. So companies couldn't borrow the money, so they try to cut on their expenses. And one of the way they cut the expenses is through taking away the jobs, and also not doing too much of spending. When you're not spending too much of money, then nobody is buying NVIDIA's chips, right? So that is another thing that's going to affect is the decreased IT spending. So if you have decreased IT spending, directly or indirectly, it is going to affect NVIDIA's top line as well, which is basically the revenue, and bottom line is their profits. The competition between NVIDIA and AMD has taken a meaningful turn. Previously, NVIDIA and ATI made graphics chips for the PC market, but later AMD acquired ATI and combined the CPU and parallel graphics chip into a single component. So AMD is trying its best to compete with NVIDIA, even though we have done a full analysis on AMD, and I feel like AMD is far behind NVIDIA in the revenue growth and also their profit and everything. So the competition is there from AMD. It is not substantial at the moment. Now, number 4 reason to sell or the shortcomings of NVIDIA is a substantial portion of the company's sales is derived from outside the United States. Sales revenues to customers outside the United States accounted for more than 56% of the total revenue for fiscal year 2024. So major portion of their sales come from outside the United States. So if there are conditions around the world changes or these macroeconomic condition changes, it is directly going to affect NVIDIA revenues. Hence, we believe that any unfavorable currency fluctuation and or any uncertainty in the macroeconomic environment may moderate the company's growth. Right now, company is growing at a very fast rate, but if these conditions occur, then that can reduce or that can decrease the growth of NVIDIA. So these are some of the reasons to sell NVIDIA. So what we have seen in this video is we have seen how they performed in the Q1 of 2025 and what to expect from Q2 of 2025. And if their outlook matches the Q2 of 2025, that's basically not a strong growth for NVIDIA. And I'm expecting much better revenue from NVIDIA as compared to what they have listed in their quarterly report. We have also seen some of the reasons to buy NVIDIA and reasons to sell NVIDIA as well. I hope you enjoyed today's video, and I'm going to see you tomorrow with another stock video, so stay tuned for that. Thank you very much, and don't forget to hit the like and subscribe to the channel so you don't miss any video from the channel. I'm going to see you tomorrow. Thank you very much and have a wonderful rest of the day. Bye-bye. Take care.